Have you ever dug into a garden bed hoping to find that dark, loose living soil everyone talks about? And instead, your shovel hits something that feels more like construction fill than garden earth. It is one of the most discouraging things in gardening. You pull back the top layer, and there is no crumble to it, no softness, no sign that anything is happening down there. Just hard, dry dirt, maybe a little gray, maybe cracked, maybe so compacted that water runs off the surface instead of soaking in. And you already know what usually follows. Slow plants, weak roots, beds that look tired no matter what you feed them. Now here is the part that sounds ridiculous at first. What if one of the simplest ways to wake that soil back up is sitting in your kitchen right now? Not in a bottle, not in a bag with glossy marketing on it, just plain rice. And yes, I know how that sounds. It sounds like the kind of gardening advice that should end in a rotten mess, a bad smell, and maybe a raccoon digging up your beds in the middle of the night. That is exactly why this works as a test of whether you really understand how soil comes back to life. Because if you bury rice the right way, in the right amount, under the right moisture conditions, you are not just throwing food into the dirt, you are setting off a chain reaction underground that can draw worms back in, loosen compacted soil, and help turn a dead bed into something that starts doing more of the work for you. Almost like a self-plowing ecosystem under your plants. And that phrase matters because that is really the promise here, not just look a weird hack, not bury this and hope for magic. The real payoff is that the soil starts acting less like a dead medium you constantly have to rescue, and more like a living system that can recover some of its own structure, airflow, and fertility. To understand why that can happen, we have to back up for a second and look at why dead soil stays dead in the first place. A lot of gardeners see a struggling bed and think the problem is simply that the soil needs fertilizer. So they reach for nitrogen, more leaf growth, more green, more quick correction, and sometimes that does change what you see above ground for a little while. But that is not the same thing as rebuilding the life below ground. Because dead soil is usually not just hungry in a nutrient sense, it is underfed biologically. That is a different problem. The roots are cramped, the air spaces are gone, water either puddles or disappears too fast, the surface gets bare, every fallen leaf gets cleaned away. Every bit of decaying matter gets removed because we have been taught that a neat bed is a healthy bed. And honestly, that tidy look can be a trap. Because when you strip the surface clean and leave the soil exposed, what you are often doing is starving the underground food web. You are taking away the slow, messy, carbon-rich material that feeds microbial life, cushions moisture swings, and gives worms a reason to stay. So the soil sits there, empty, tight, quiet. And then we wonder why nothing underneath seems alive. This is where the whole rice idea starts making sense. Most people are trained to think about feeding plants. What this method does is feed the system that supports the plant. And that shift matters more than it sounds, because soil biology does not run on the same logic as a quick liquid feed. The underground world runs on carbon and carbohydrates. That is the fuel. That is the energy source. That is what kicks microbial activity into gear when the conditions are right. So instead of asking, what can I pour on this plant to make it green up fast? You start asking a better question. What can I put into this soil to wake the biology back up? And plain rice, especially plain white rice, is one very simple answer. Not because rice is magical, because rice is concentrated starch. That means it is a compact little packet of carbohydrate energy. And when you place that energy into damp soil, it becomes a fast, accessible food source for the tiny life forms that do the real heavy lifting underground. That is the key. Not the rice by itself, what the rice invites. And here is the first real plot twist in this whole story. The worms are not coming because they want to sit there chewing on dry grains of rice. They do not eat it that way. That is one of the most useful things to understand, because it instantly separates this method from the cartoon version of it. Earthworms do not have teeth. They are not down there crunching rice like trail mix. If you dropped a hard grain in front of a worm, it would not bite into it the way people imagine. What happens instead is much more interesting. The rice starts taking on moisture from the soil. It softens, and once that happens, microbes move in first. Bacteria, fungi, all the little decomposers that know exactly what to do with a fresh carbohydrate source. They begin breaking that starch down, and as they do, a kind of living film develops around the grain, a microbial coating, a feeding zone. Not something dramatic you would see with your eyes from across the yard, but a real active pocket of biology forming around that buried starch. That is the buffet. That is what the worms are actually responding to. So when people say rice attracts worms, the cleaner way to say it is this. Rice feeds microbes. Microbes create the food signal. Worms follow that signal. That is the bridge. And once you understand that bridge, the whole method stops sounding like a gimmick and starts sounding like exactly what it is, a shortcut for rebuilding activity in soil that is gone. Quiet. Now let's open that up a little more, because this is the part that gives the method its weight. When those starches start breaking down, the microbial population around them does not just casually increase, it surges. And when microbial activity surges, the soil in that zone starts behaving differently. You get more biological motion, more exchange, more byproducts from decomposition, more organic acids, more chemical activity in a place that may have been dead and locked up just days before. That matters most in compacted, depleted ground, because dead soil is often not just empty, it is stuck. Minerals can be there and still not be doing much for the plant because they are tied up in a form the roots cannot easily access. Structure can technically exist and still be so tight that roots and water cannot move through it well. The problem is not only not enough, sometimes the problem is not available. And this is where that buried starch starts acting like a catalyst. It does not magically manufacture perfect soil out of nowhere. What it does is give the underground biology enough fuel to start changing the chemistry and structure of that little patch from the inside. That is a much more powerful idea than dumping on another correction from above, because now the soil is not just receiving, it is reacting. And once that reaction starts, the worms have a reason to show up. Which brings us to the next twist people remember, because it sounds strange until you picture the soil properly. How do worms even find it? They do not have eyes the way we think about tracking food. They are not seeing a grain of rice from 6 inches away and making a decision. They are moving through darkness, through moisture, through pressure, through tiny chemical differences in the soil around them. The easiest way to imagine it is not that they are looking for food. It is that they are feeling their way through a wet chemical landscape. As the microbial activity builds around those grains, the surrounding moisture starts carrying faint chemical cues outward through the soil. Not some dramatic scent plume like in a cartoon. More like a gradient, a signal in the dampness, a living trace that says there is active decomposition here, there is food here, there is something worth moving toward. And when conditions are moist enough, worms are very good at finding those zones. So again, the rice is not a direct bait in the way people assume. It is more like the starter fuel that creates a biologically active hotspot. The worms move toward that hotspot because that is where the microbial life is richest. Now once you know that, the practical method gets a lot easier to understand, because the goal is not just put rice in the ground. The goal is to create the right conditions for that chain reaction to happen cleanly. So if you want to try this, here is the simple version. Use raw white rice. White rice works better for this specific purpose because the outer bran layer is gone. Brown rice still has that protective coating, which means it breaks down more slowly. In another context, that slower breakdown might be fine. But if your goal is to create a faster microbial response in tired soil, white rice is the cleaner choice. And keep it raw. Cooked rice breaks down fast, but it can also clump, turn sticky, and go sour in a hurry if the conditions are wrong. Raw rice is slower, cleaner, and easier to control. That matters a lot if you are working around roots you do not want to stress. As for placement, do not scatter it on the surface and walk away. That is one of the quickest ways to make the whole thing useless. The grains dry out, birds find them. Nothing meaningful happens underground. You want the rice buried shallow but not exposed. About 2 to 3 inches down is the sweet spot for most garden beds. That zone tends to hold enough moisture to soften the grain, while still giving you the oxygen you need for healthy decomposition. Too shallow and it dries out. Too deep and you risk getting into heavier, lower oxygen conditions, especially in dense soil. As for how much, this is where people ruin a good idea by getting overexcited. You do not need a pile. You do not need to dump half a bag into one raised bed and hope for a miracle. A small handful per square foot is more than enough to get the process started. Scatter it lightly. Think in terms of spacing, not mounding. You want the grains separated through the soil, not packed into a dense wet lump. Then cover it back up and water the area deeply. That first soaking matters. Dry rice in dry soil does nothing. It just sits there. The water is what starts the softening, and just as important, it wakes up the microbial life already present in the soil so it can move on to that new food source. After that, the goal is simple. Keep the area consistently moist, not soaked. Think damp sponge, not swamp. Timing is everything because soil biology isn't random. It is highly dependent on temperature. If you bury rice in the dead of winter when the ground is frozen, or during a searing summer drought when the soil is baking, the biological engine simply won't start. The absolute windows for success are the transitional periods of early spring and mid-autumn. These are the moments when the soil is naturally moist and the temperature is primed to act as the ignition key for that microbial. Because if there is one thing that can turn this from smart to ugly fast, it is bad oxygen balance. And this is where the warning matters, because the risk is real. Too much rice in one place, combined with waterlogged soil and not enough air, can push that patch into anaerobic breakdown. That is when things go wrong. The smell changes first. Instead of that fresh earthy smell you want from living soil, you get something sour, sometimes rotten egg sharp, sometimes more like old garbage, or that stomach-turning acidic smell that tells you something is breaking down the wrong way. If you ever smell that, stop right there. That is not the sign of success. That means the area is too wet, too dense, or too overloaded with material for oxygen to keep up. And when soil goes that direction, roots can suffer. Worms do not love it. The whole point of the method gets reversed, so if that happens, the fix is not complicated. Open the area up. Mix in dry crumbly soil, dry leaves, or another airy carbon source. Let oxygen back in, spread that zone out instead of leaving it as one wet pocket. Then next time, use less rice and more restraint. That restraint is part of what makes the method work. You are not trying to overpower the bed. You are trying to stimulate it. Now, one of the first objections people have at this point is, fine, but won't burying food attract pests? And that concern makes sense. If you leave fragrant scraps on the surface, yes, you are asking for attention. But raw white rice buried under soil is a different situation. It is not like burying sweet fruit or greasy leftovers. It is not giving off the kind of strong surface odor that usually draws scavengers in from a distance. And when the grains are lightly scattered under a couple inches of soil, there is no obvious jackpot sitting there waiting to be dug up. The rule is simple. Buried properly, lightly used, and fully covered. That is what keeps the method boring to pests and useful to the soil. So what do you actually see if this is working? Not fireworks. Not instant monster growth by tomorrow afternoon. For the first few days, it mostly looks like nothing. And that is important to say, because a believable method needs a believable timeline. Under the surface, the grains are softening, the microbes are responding, the chemistry in that little zone is starting to shift. But from above, you may not see much right away. Around the end of the first week, sometimes a little later depending on temperature and moisture, that feeding zone becomes more active. That is when worms may begin moving toward it. By the second or third week, if you gently pull back the soil in one of those treated spots, you may notice a real difference. The dirt often looks darker. It feels less hard and more crumbly. It breaks apart differently in your hand, and if the conditions have been good, that is when you are most likely to start seeing worms right where the starch and microbial activity were strongest. That moment is what makes the whole thing click. Because it is not just that you found a worm, it is that the bed no longer feels dead. And once worms start working that zone, the payoff gets bigger than the rice itself. Because worms do not just pass through, they tunnel. They open air pathways. They help water move down instead of skating off the surface. They process that biologically active material and leave behind castings that are far richer than ordinary dirt. That is the prize. Worm castings are one of the clearest signals that the underground system is shifting in your favor. They are often described as containing dramatically higher levels of plant-available nutrients than ordinary soil. Numbers commonly cited around 5 times more available nitrogen, 7 times more available phosphorus, and 11 times more available potassium. But even beyond the numbers, what matters is how they function in the bed. They are biologically active. They help hold moisture. They improve texture. They feed the root zone in a form that feels steady rather than harsh. So now the method stops being rice in soil. Now it becomes a way of recruiting a workforce. A small one, yes. Invisible most of the time, yes, but real. Microbes first, then worms, then better structure, better airflow, better moisture handling, better nutrient movement. And over time, a bed that is simply easier to garden in. That is why this matters most in the kinds of beds people struggle with year after year. Heavy clay, hard-packed ground, beds that crack when they dry and seal when they get wet. Places where roots always seem to stall out no matter how much good intention you throw at. In a bed like that, even a small increase in life below ground changes the whole feel of the place. The soil opens up a little. Water starts moving differently. You dig in and it does not feel like striking a brick. And no, rice alone is not going to fix every deep structural problem in one pass. That would be the wrong way to tell this story. But as a trigger for biological activity in tired soil, it is surprisingly effective, especially when the bed has been missing exactly what this method provides. Food for the underground life that should have been there all along. If you are the cautious type, there is also a softer entry point into the same idea. You can use rice rinse water. That cloudy water people pour down the drain after rinsing raw rice is carrying suspended starch, which means it can feed microbes too. It is not as dramatic as burying grains, and it usually will not produce the same concentrated hotspot effect. But if you want to test the principle, with less risk, especially around containers or smaller spaces, rice water is a very easy way to start feeding that biological layer without burying much of anything. Still, if your goal is to wake up a dead garden bed and pull worm activity back into it, the buried raw white rice method is the stronger place to start. If you want to take this a step further, try mixing rice directly into your compost pile. We've all had those compost piles that just sit there, stalled out and refusing to break down. Usually, it's because the microbes lack the fast-acting energy they need to get their metabolism running. Adding a cup of cheap raw rice is like throwing gasoline on a biological fire. The concentrated starches provide an immediate energy spike, causing the pile to heat up dramatically and acting as a beacon for every earthworm in the area. They'll invade the pile and help you turn yard waste into premium black compost in record time. And there is one more reason I like this idea. It changes what you pay attention to. A lot of gardening advice keeps you focused on what is missing from the plant right now. More feed, more product, more correction, more intervention. This points your attention somewhere deeper. It asks whether the bed itself is functioning, whether there is life in it, whether there is food for that life, whether you have built a place where the underground system can keep helping you instead of waiting for the next rescue. Because that is the real upgrade, not the rice, the mindset. Once you start thinking this way, you stop seeing the soil as a dead holding medium and start seeing it as a workforce that either has fuel or does not. A living engine that either has something to run on or has been stripped so clean it has nothing left to work with. And when you feed that engine the right way, even with something as ordinary as a little white rice, the changes can be bigger than they look at first. The bed starts loosening itself. The worms stop treating your garden like a place to pass through and start treating it like a place to stay. Moisture holds a little better. Roots move a little easier. The whole system gets less brittle. That is when gardening becomes less about constant correction and more about building conditions that keep paying you back. So if you have a bed that feels dead, not just hungry, if the soil is hard, quiet, and lifeless, this is one of the simplest experiments worth trying. Not because it is flashy, because it reveals something true. Healthy soil does not begin with a bottle. It begins when the underground life has a reason to come back.